Hi everyone, it's Monica and welcome back to Tailor-Made Cards for You. Well, today we're going to jump into some ideology, and every year I create tags. A few years ago I created these tags and I still have them. I used the old paper that I had, and then on some of the situations I used some of the packaging that came with the ideology. So there's lots of ways that you can create tags using all sorts of backgrounds. Today I wanted to share with you another way to create some tags using some authentic toe tags. Now, a lot of people love using toe tags during the holiday season, and I know it's not for everybody. So if this kind of creeps you out, then you can certainly just use blank tags when creating some of your Halloween tags. But if you like some of this creepy ideology like I do, then you probably aren't going to be overly concerned about using toe tags. So not only do I have toe tags, but I have them in the blue and the beige, but I also have some evidence identification tags. And I carry these in my shops because they're great to craft with. And that's kind of what I wanted to do today. I wanted to kind of just pull out some of the new ideology because I've been dying to get my hands on it. And then I also pulled out some of the old ideology. Halloween ideology is probably my favorite season. Not to say that I don't love the Christmas ideology, but I just love the Halloween ideology. And every year I pick it up. I have paper dolls that are just kind of bouncing out of my craft room because I have bags and bags of ideology. And specifically bags and bags of the paper dolls, but I just love them and I use them on a lot of my projects, so I don't mind investing the money in products that I use. So let's go ahead and kind of clean this up, and then we're gonna make a few tags here. So just pull out some of your ideology that you have on your stash, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the new stuff. It can be some of the old ones as well, which is what I did here, and let's see what we can create. Alright, so if you have a lot of ideology, it can get a little bit overwhelming. There are so many pieces of ephemera out there, and sometimes it's hard to know exactly what you want to use to create your tags. So what I like to do is I like to basically pick my focal point. And I'm going to be working with my paper dolls, so I picked the 3 paper dolls that I thought would work well. And then what I do is I get all of my ideology and I just start going through it. Now, you might have little pieces that you've created, like that little potion bottle that I shared with you. So make sure that you pull out items that you've prepared to use, but maybe haven't used them quite in a project yet. So the first tag that I wanted to work with is this beige toe tag, and it has this woman on it. And I wanted to create kind of a parlor background a little bit. So what I decided to use for background is the Halloween wallpaper from Tim Holtz, but I don't want to cover the whole tag. Remember, these are toe tags, so you want to have some of it showing so that way it is identifiable. Now, one of the biggest struggles that people have when they are creating layered cards or layered tags is they don't like to cover things up, but you have to get over that because that's what layers are all about. Remember, you are working towards an end goal. You're not necessarily working towards showing everything. So I knew that I wanted my background to be just behind her to kind of complement her, I guess her background or her dress. She looked kind of like she would be in a parlor. So I really wanted something that would complement that. So I just took pieces of the wallpaper so that way it would be directly behind her. And then I'm going to go ahead and place it down. Now, another thing when I'm doing layers is I don't necessarily glue it all the way down because you might find a piece that you want to tuck under a layer that you've already kind of attached. So don't get fully committed when you are doing layers. Attach it a bit, but leave the edges up so that way when you are adding more layers, if you decide to put something under versus over, you still have that option. And then there's a couple of ways you can go as far as design. For this particular tag, I want to keep it more muted, so I'm going to pick my grays and my whites and my browns. I'm not going to go with a lot of color on this, but you could certainly do that with some of your tags. I just chose not to do that. So knowing that ahead of time kind of helps me pick the ephemera that I want to use. Now, the layering that I'm using here is Mod Podge, and this is the Antique Mod Podge, and this works really well. It's a sealant, so when you come in with crayons, which I'm going to be doing here in a minute, it really helps to move the medium. Now, another thing that you can use when you are making layers is your collage medium from Tim Holtz. I don't have any of that. Mine dried out, so I'm just using what I have, and the Mod Podge works just as well. Okay, now as you can see, I'm also using a paintbrush to spread my Mod Podge. So you're going to want to have something moist, either a cup of water or maybe a wet wipe, so that way your brush doesn't get dried out, because it definitely will. All right, so once I have my my wallpaper adhered, I'm going to go ahead and choose some more pieces. And like I said, I'm going towards more of the brown, grayish tones. So I pulled from an old Ideology sticker sheet, and I think it was from last year, but it has some great locks and some great clocks. And they have that grayish tone, so it was perfect for my background. Now remember, if you're working with stickers versus your ephemera pieces, once you lay down your sticker piece, you may not be able to pull it up. So you're going to want to be somewhat strategic when you're working with stickers. Not to say that I don't recommend it, because I absolutely love to work with stickers, especially if I need to have my bottom layers more secure. The stickers will kind of hold it in place. So just keep that in mind. Now, when you're working with tags, the best ideology that I find to use are the snippets. And Tim Holtz has different sizes of ephemera, and the smaller pieces are your snippets, and those fit really well on tags. So those are the ones that I go to. Now, another item that I like to use during the holiday season, and I tend to use them a lot during Halloween, are remnant rubs. I don't think that he released any new ones this year, but I have several packets of remnant rubs from prior releases. So definitely I pulled those out to use on these tags. Remnant rubs are one of my favorite products to use, and to me they seem to be underused. I don't see them a lot on other people's videos, but I love them. And they are a great value for the price. You get so many different images for a pretty reasonable price. And I have found that the remnant rubs come pretty much in the same designs as some of his stamps. So if you don't want to invest a lot of money in the stamps, but you still like the designs, you can easily get some of those images from the remnant rubs. And look at these pieces. Some of the images are so small. They are perfect for your tags, and they really add interest to your backgrounds. Now, when you get your package of remnant rubs, you're going to get a popsicle stick, which you can use to rub some of the images onto your cardstock. But I have a stylist, and I like my stylist because it's pointy, and then it has two different sides. It has the pointy side, but then it also has a different side, which you'll see in just a minute, that can help you lift up some of that plastic once it's completely rubbed down. So I think the stylist is a good value for using the remnant rubs, especially if you're going to use remnant rubs regularly, because it's a tool that you can just use over and over again. Now, when you're working with remnant rubs, you want to be really careful when you're lifting it up, because if you don't get the entire image attached to your cardstock, then some of it's going to break off. And these are really delicate. For the most part, they come off pretty easily, but when you're lifting it up, do it slowly to make sure that your complete image is attached. And if not, just put that plastic back down and give it a little bit more rub. And as you can see, I'm getting all sorts of different images with the remnant rubs. I got that corner design. I got the number 31. I got the figure numbers. I'm just getting lots of different types of images. And then I also had this little spider that I was able to add. So again, lots of different images for a pretty reasonable price. Okay, now remember that we used some of the Mod Podge earlier to adhere some of the images down. Well, this is where it's going to really help you out here, because we're going to add some distressed crayons to kind of give the tag a little bit more of a grungy look. The medium that you use, whether you use Mod Podge or collage medium, works not only as a sealant, It works as an adhesive, and it also works to help move some of your other mediums. So it's really important that you don't just use glue. You want to have some of that sealant on top, especially if you're going to be working with distress crayons, because it really helps to move the medium. All right, so when I am adding my distress crayons, I like to definitely just go over the edges. So what I mean by that is I will outline my ephemera pieces. So if you can see a true piece of ephemera, I'm going to outline it. And this works twofold. Not only do you get some grunginess, but it will also cover up some of that white. As you can see on the wallpaper, when I tore it, some of the design was torn off, and you see part of the white from the rip. So you want to cover that up, and this is where the distress crayons come into play. Now, there's a lot of colors that you can choose to go muted. You've got your walnut stain, you've got your vintage photo, there's brush corduroy. I think there's one called something like a twig. So you have all sorts of colors that you can work with. So don't feel like you have to go out and buy another color. Just use what you have. And if you do like to create the vintage designs, there is I think it's a 6-pack that has the vintage colors, where you're going to get the black soot, you're going to get your walnut stain, you're going to get your vintage photo. And that was the very first pack that I purchased when I was using distress crayons. Now, distress crayons to me are another medium that people are kind of afraid of, and I'm not sure why. They add a lot of interest to your backgrounds, especially if you like your items to look old and tattered and vintage, which I definitely do. So I'm a big fan of the distress crayons. Okay, now we're on the home stretch. We've got our background, I've got our color. Now we're going to go ahead and glue down our focal point. And this is where I do, or I'll use glue versus the collage medium, because I want this baby to stick to my tag. I don't want her to come up. I don't want her to curl. I want to make sure that she's going to stick nicely, especially because I have all that medium on the background. So this is where I'm using my 3-in-1 adhesive, which is a liquid glue. I guess you could probably use tape, but I prefer the liquid glue because it gives me some movement and I can place her exactly where I want her. Now, this is important because I'm using a toe tag, so I did want some of the words for the toe tag to show. I know in the beginning of the video I said don't worry about covering things, but I want people to know that this is a toe tag. So I made sure that I didn't cover the top part where it said attached to toe, and then on the side I wanted to make sure that you could see the name of deceased as well as the case number. So while you are completely fine with covering pieces of your ephemera when you're doing layers, if there's a piece that you want to show, make sure that you're strategic about your layering. And then once I had all of my pieces laid down, I just came in with my walnut stain to edge up the outside of the card just to finish it off. And as you can see, I didn't put a lot of color on this tag, but she really looks great. I'm really pleased with this tag being my first Halloween tag of the season. Okay, so now we're going to go on to tag number 2. And tag number 2 is going to be the blue tag that says attached to toe. Now, while this one is a little bit more detailed, you can see that we have a lot of background. It's pretty busy. You've got your wallpaper, you've got your pieces of ephemera, you have your remnant rubs, you have your bottle, you have your creepy lady, and then you have your wicked for your sentiment. So there's a lot going on there. But for the next card, we're only going to use a couple pieces of ephemera because I really wanted to have the background show up a little bit more. Now, like I said earlier, don't be afraid to layer, but this is a really cool tag, and I love how it says attached to toe. And I really wanted to be able to preserve some of the tag. So I kind of thought about this ahead of time. I think I only used 3 pieces of ephemera on this, and then I used some remnant rubs and a sticker. So I didn't use a lot on this tag. And more isn't necessarily better. I mean, you can make some beautiful Halloween tags with minimal ephemera. So keep that in mind. You don't have to put lots of ephemera on your tags to make them look good. Okay, so when I was placing the piece of ephemera onto this tag, I made sure that I kept the line showing name, because this tag could easily be used as a gift for someone. Maybe you're going to make them a journal and you can write their name. So I wanted to preserve the name line on this tag to be able to make it more personalized. So keep that in mind also. If you are making tags for someone specific and you want to put your name on them, how creepy would it be to put someone's name on a toe tag? So that's why I was strategic about the way that I put the WHH Gore label. And then I had kind of pre-laid this out before I turned on the camera, so I knew that this gentleman was going to work well with this label. I knew I only wanted to use a few pieces of ephemera, so I was really specific about what I chose. So again, you don't see that I'm going through all of my ephemera pieces, but I turned the camera off and on several times when I was creating these tags, because I really wanted to find the perfect pieces. And I didn't want you to necessarily see me digging through my ephemera, but there was a lot of digging going on. So take some time, find the pieces that will work for the design that you're looking for. All right, so once I had my 2 pieces of ephemera adhered, then I went ahead and I added a couple of remnant rubs. And the remnant rub that I'm using right now, it went to the bottom. I just wanted to fill in that blue space. And then I'm going to come in with another one at the very top. But again, I'm strategic about where I'm placing these. I want to make sure that I leave that name line open, and I want my attached to toe to be very prominent. There's small enough pieces on the remnant rubs that you can add several of them and not have to worry about them overtaking your tag. There was another remnant rub that had a gentleman's name, and I just put that right above the attached to toe, and it really worked fine without messing up the integrity of the toe tag. Like I said, my goal here was to preserve the toe tag, but I was still able to add some really fun elements. And then once I was finished adding the Shake Well remnant rub, all I needed to do was to attach my focal point, which was this gentleman. And again, I'm going to use the 3-in-1 Beacon adhesive glue to make sure that he doesn't go anywhere. So as we complete the second tag, I'm going to show you side by side, where the first one you're going to be able to see was pretty busy. Again, we added a lot of elements. And then the second tag was a little bit more sparse, but they both still came out really, really well. Okay, so the next tag we're going to create is this red tag that says evidence identification. And I just have to use these witches. I love these witches. Every time I get the paper dolls for Halloween, these typically are the first characters that I use. One of the things that I really like about the paper dolls is the attention to detail. As you saw, I was picking some of those pieces off so that way you can see through the tag. Tim and his crew could have easily left those pieces in where it looked more of a solid image, but I love how he die cuts even in between the arms just to make them a little bit more realistic. Now, I knew I wanted to add color on this tag, and I have some pharmacy labels that are authentic vintage, but sometimes I just can't bring myself to using some of my authentic vintage. So I do have some replicated pharmacy labels that I have in my shop that I use for some of my crafting. Now, not to say that I haven't used some authentic vintage pharmacy labels, but I really cringe when I do have to use those. So, like I said, I went ahead and I printed these out on some sticker paper so that way I can create some backgrounds. And again, I turned the camera off and I kind of rummaged through all of my pharmacy labels to find the ones that would work perfectly for my background. And I ended up picking 2 that I'm going to be sharing with you in just a moment here. All right, now this tag is a little bit bigger than the other 2 tags, so I have a little bit more surface to work with, so I was able to use the bigger pharmacy labels. And then I also knew that I wanted to continue with that red theme, so the red poison labels worked perfectly for my background. Now, you're not going to see a lot of these labels, but again, like I said, you can't be afraid to cover up your layers when you are creating layered cards or layered tags. They are to add interest, not necessarily to be your focal point. when you're starting your tags, pick your focal point first and then make that the last thing that you add. Everything else is just extra. It's just adding to your background. Now, I'm somewhat strategic because I wanted to make sure that the date on these tags showed, and then I wanted to also have some of those check boxes show as well. Originally, I was going to have the name part showing, but I ended up covering it up, which you'll see in just a minute here. So after I got my poison labels stuck down, and again, these are stickers that I created, so I didn't have to use any adhesive, then I was able to find a red pharmacy label in those snippets, the ephemera packs from Tim Holtz. I was able to find a red ephemera piece that I was able to add right over the witch. So another thing that I like about these witches is you have a lot of surface at the bottom. Even though you have the broom on the left side of the witch on the left side, you got a lot of the dress area showing. So you're able to add nice pieces of ephemera, covering up part of the witch, but not taking away from the witchiness of the images. So I think it works really well. And then to continue with the witch theme, I was able to find the Salem, Massachusetts sticker that was part of the Ideology collection as well. Now, when you are layering and you have your focal point, I constantly keep it on my tag, as you can see here, because I'm moving it around as I add more pieces. I'm making sure that I'm showing what I want to show. So while I continue to say, don't be afraid to cover things up, if there's something that you want showing, make sure that you place each layer strategically. So as I continue adding my layers, my stickers, my remnant rubs, whatever I'm adding, I have my focal point that I continue to move around just to make sure when I finally place them, everything that I want to show will still be showing. And then once I have all of my layers, I have my stickers, I'm going to add my red ephemera label in just a minute. Then the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add some more of those remnant rubs. And the remnant rubs that I used were from the Halloween collection from last year and years before. But another remnant rub that works really well is the Field Notes remnant rubs. The Field Notes remnant rubs have some great bugs. They've got numbers, and they work well with the Halloween theme. So if you are going to pick up some remnant rubs, look not only for the Halloween ones, but take a look at the Field Note ones as well, because those work really well for your Halloween decor. Alright, so since this is the official first video of my Halloween series, let me go ahead and talk to you a little bit about how it's going to work. I did have a poll out on my YouTube community, and you all indicated more than 50% that you wanted me to post the videos as I went along. So that's what I'm going to do. And then typically on my holiday series, I do have giveaways. So if you want to be entered into my drawings, you're going to want to leave comments on the videos. And I choose randomly from each video typically. So leave a comment on every video to increase your chances for the giveaway. I also ask that you are a subscriber to my channel, because this does help me maintain my channel numbers, as well as enable me to continue to give you great content. So if you could give me a thumbs up on each of my videos, I would really appreciate that as well. So as always, I'll leave a list of all the products that I've used to create these tags, along with the links to the stores. I hope that I've given you some ideas on how to create Halloween tags. Whether you use toe tags or just plain old tags, layering can really be a lot of fun, especially if you can dig through all of this fun ephemera that you may have in your stash. And then, of course, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, along with the little bell up on the right-hand corner, so that way when my Halloween videos do get posted, you are notified. All right, everybody, I hope that you've enjoyed my very first Halloween video for the season, and we'll see you again next time.